All right, let's go ahead and get started. I want to extend a warm welcome to everyone and say thank you to all who are joining us today. We're very excited to share with you a timely and important topic in the analytics space, analytics modernization with Dataiku, specifically migrating from Alteryx to Dataiku. Over the next few minutes, we'll delve into why organizations are moving to modern cloud-based analytics solutions and how you too can successfully navigate this transition within your organization. We'll explore Highmark Health's modernization journey and how they've navigated the shift from Alteryx to Dataiku for self-service analytics with guidance and partnership from Aimpoint Digital. So before we introduce ourselves, let's talk about you. After all, this session is all about helping you navigate your modernization journey. How do you know if this session is right for you? This session was designed to be most helpful if any of the following describes you. They don't all have to resonate, but if at least a couple do, you're in the right place. First, if your organization is cloud-centric or on the path to becoming cloud-centric, this means that you're navigating the shift to cloud data warehouses or have already done so. As a result, you likely care about influencing decisions around how to best align your analytics platform strategy to capitalize on those cloud investments your company has made. You might be looking to move towards a platform like Dataiku that will enable more mature capabilities and analytics use cases. What we've seen with many of our clients is after years of self-service initiatives focused on data prep, blending, aggregation, and automation, they're ready to prioritize more advanced use cases that can drive greater value with their data. That might be you. And finally, you may be considering a migration of your users and workflows to Dataiku and want to ensure you're taking the most effective and intentional path. If you're moving away from Alteryx or a similar legacy platform, then this talk will help clarify why that shift makes sense and provide helpful insights clarifying how you can get started on that same migration path. So if any of those describe you, then you're in the right place and we're glad you're here. Before we dive into the agenda, a quick introduction on who we are. I'm Justin Davis from Aimpoint Digital. Aimpoint is proud to be the 2023 and 2024 America's SI Partner of the Year for Dataiku. And as happens, we're the #1 services partner globally for Alteryx as well. So as a firm, we believe there's no one better suited to advise on these two platforms specifically and guide your migration from Alteryx to Dataiku. If this is the first time you're hearing about Aimpoint Digital, we are an analytics consulting, advisory, and solutions development firm. I've spent years working extensively with both Alteryx and Dataiku, leading teams, delivering solutions in each platform, giving me a balanced perspective on both of the platforms. And in my current role as Director of Analytics Platform Strategy, my focus is on helping our clients to make the best decisions about their analytics platforms based on their company's priorities. When they decide to migrate from Alteryx to Dataiku, I lead our incredible team at Aimpoint supporting clients through every step of that journey. And with me today is one of those who had the pleasure of supporting through this exact journey, Andrew Charland from Highmark Health. Andrew.
Thanks, Justin. And hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. As Justin said, I'm Andrew Charland, Director of Data Operations at Highmark Health. And for those that don't know, Highmark Health is an integrated payer and provider healthcare organization based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We are Mid-Atlantic focused with a couple of Blue Cross Blue Shield plans, as well as the Allegheny Health Network hospital network in Pittsburgh. My role internally is really focused on enabling access to data. The first part of that role is focused on tools and internal users. And so one of those roles is to foster enablement of all of our analytic and business intelligence tooling. We manage training, vendors, and really just help our users along that journey. And then the second part of my role is that I manage a large development shop that focuses on ETL, really data extract development and delivery of several data extracts externally to a number of different strategic partners that Highmark Health has to share data with. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Andrew. Now let's take a quick look at the agenda so you know what to expect in today's session. We'll briefly start with why modernization is critical today. What are the circumstances driving organizations to move away from legacy platforms like Alteryx to cloud-centric solutions like Dataiku? The bulk of our time will be diving into Highmark's story, detailing how they navigated their migration in partnership with Aimpoint. We'll discuss key success factors that enabled Highmark in the migration. So what are some of the key takeaways and recommendations that you can take home to your organization as you consider a migration like this? And finally, we'll wrap up with how you can achieve similar success in your own organization with the right approach and partnership to support. If you have any comments or questions during the session, feel free to drop them into the chat. We'll be monitoring it, and we'll set aside time at the end for a Q&A to make sure that you address your thoughts. As we work with organizations across various industries, one pattern has become very clear. Modernizing to a cloud-centric platform like Dataiku has become a strategic imperative, especially for those who are currently Alteryx customers. But what are the reasons behind this? First, growing data volumes are making the need for scalable analytics essential, and we believe Dataiku is best in class for its ability to scale analytics workloads in concert with cloud data platforms. Legacy platforms like Alteryx are struggling to implement robust cloud capabilities, often falling short of their stated vision and roadmap, which ends up impacting customers directly. For organizations aiming to mature their analytics, this creates limitations. As a cloud-native product, Dataiku is spending more product development time enhancing meaningful analytics features, especially those relevant to machine learning and AI, less on catching up with cloud integration and scalability. Another significant challenge is governance and visibility. Alteryx has a desktop-based usage model that makes workflow centralization, visibility, and governance optional, or at least extremely difficult to achieve in a robust way, whereas Dataiku offers complete visibility and governance over the entire analytics footprint to see exactly what users are doing with your data at all times. And of course, there's the question of cost. We're consistently hearing concerns about the increase in cost burdens with Alteryx, where customers just aren't seeing a corresponding increase in platform features or innovation to justify these price hikes. In some instances, they are not even increasing their license count, but facing what they perceive to be unreasonable price adjustments. So when you put all these factors together, it's a pretty compelling case leading many of the companies we work with to decide to move away from Alteryx, and most of them are choosing to move towards Dataiku. With that perspective, I want to pass it over to Andrew now to share what this modernization journey looked like specifically for Highmark. Andrew, let's start with the backstory. What were the motivations behind Highmark's decision to modernize?
Yeah, that's a good question. So to go back a few years, really December 2020, Highmark Health announced a strategic partnership with Google Cloud to build basically a state-of-the-art technology platform end-to-end that enables our strategy. And our strategy really comes from our mission, and that's to create a remarkable healthcare experience, bringing people to be their best. That requires redefining healthcare from the very bottom. To achieve this, you need to leverage very large data sets to identify drivers of healthy outcomes, lower healthcare costs, increased equity, and access to care. So in recognition for how our legacy data platforms would need to modernize and scale, it became imperative to move forward in this direction. So our technical debt was pretty significant. Our existing data platforms were aging and inefficient. As Justin said, they were desktop oriented in the case of Alteryx. We also have a large amount of corporate land drive driven data sets and tools. And both of this hindered our ability to analyze large data sets within acceptable response times, or in some cases, a response at all. And that really created blockers to seamless and consistent data access with numerous versions of the truth. So that includes data quality issues, et cetera. Regarding scaling of our analytics, we obviously needed a modern tool stack that could handle the increasing data volume that we're talking about, and also the increasing complexity of that data, and also of what we wanted to do with it, especially leaning towards AI as we have been over the last few years. So to unlock our potential, we really looked at options across the industry of how would we modernize our analytics tool stack to unlock the full potential of our data, allowing us to gain those deeper insights to make better decisions and improve healthcare outcomes that I mentioned earlier as part of our mission.
So Andrew, reason back to the position Highmark was in before moving to Dataiku, can you tell us some of the particular pain points you were feeling that were most challenging?
Yeah, especially data access challenges would come to the forefront, especially that was hindering our cloud adoption. And of course, given our mission in that strategic investment with Google, the company leadership wanted to see a strong increase in adoption of those resources. And so getting to a point where we could see some true cloud adoption was critical. Lowering software costs, you mentioned it earlier, and of course, improved visibility and governance. That's a key one as well that we had in our legacy platform before we introduced Dataiku. So let me actually talk about how Dataiku maps well to these things. So Dataiku's cloud-based platform really addressed our data access challenges by providing a centralized and collaborative environment for data prep. That's really what we looked for out front, but obviously there were more things that came with it than just the ability to prep your data. But what this really removed was barriers to entry for analysts to get to the cloud, where we were building that state-of-the-art data warehouse for all analytics and really that engine behind it. That gave us a platform to be more efficient in preparing data sets for dashboards, reports, or even feeding into downstream applications and macros, et cetera. So really finding a way to pair our new cloud-based data platform alongside a tool that allows easy access to that really was critical. And as I mentioned, this was all driven by the motivation to get our analysts to the cloud. So getting that adoption ticked up was important. So Dataiku facilitated that with our unified and efficient data ecosystem, all within GCP. It was not only cloud native, but it was cloud agnostic. And that was critical. Some of the other options we looked at, including Alteryx and some of what they were developing, were heavily AWS focused. They were not ready to pivot towards GCP just yet. It was in their roadmap, but they couldn't give us commitment, right? But Dataiku didn't really need to know what cloud platform we were on. They were ready to go with whatever that was, and they were built from the cloud up. So that gave us a huge lift in feeling confident about this was the right tool. Justin mentioned earlier the software costs, and Highmark Health absolutely felt this. We were in a period of very high inflation anyway, so really everything was going up. But what we saw was what I'd call irresponsible pricing from some of the other vendors, and Dataiku did not offer that at all. We were very pleased with the package we were able to put together with Dataiku, and it really gave us greater control and predictability over the next few years in terms of our budgets and really looking at how can we lower administrative costs overall, which are outside of Highmark Health's core business function, which is not to calculate analytics. It's about improving health outcomes. So really trying to remove those administrative costs were critical. And lastly, another point that Justin mentioned was the improved visibility. So as Alteryx was heavily desktop focused, we did not know what people had developed on their desktop and ran themselves. And in some cases, even what they promoted to the server were not tied to them anymore because people left the organization. There was just a lot of decentralized activity. It absolutely fostered innovation. There was no doubt about that. But to be able to really understand who is using database platform X, or has anybody tapped into this table, for example, that might have an issue or a production issue on day one. This allows us to really pinpoint and get to the impact area, or if there's a migration such as what we're going through, really know who we need to move. So improving that visibility with a centralized tool that we can see all activity really allows us to be more nimble to come through whatever comes next. So that kind of explains Dataiku. Aimpoint was also a critical partner as well, and that's why we're here today partnering with Justin to share our story with you. We couldn't have gone about this journey without the technical expertise that Aimpoint brought, for sure. And what was so attractive from the beginning was not only was Aimpoint a top partner of Dataiku, they were also a top partner of Alteryx. They knew Alteryx very well, and so you really can't go wrong when you have a team of experts providing valuable expertise on either direction. And their key value that we'll talk about in the next few slides is really doing that current state assessment, defining our lighthouse use cases, ensuring seamless integration of Dataiku with our existing data sources, workflows, infrastructure options were really critical. So they brought the right technical expertise that we were not ready to jump into from scratch. Change management, I really can't stress enough. We were planning to come forward with a very robust plan to shepherd our users through, but Aimpoint facilitated that adoption across the organization, providing us a clear plan on training, content of that training, how to break down that training in terms of cohorts and make it specific. They provided guidance to users in terms of office hours and really direct one-on-one guidance for users when they wanted it. And overall, this ensured a smooth transition and successful implementation. So we were really pleased with that. Of course, it allowed us to optimize as well. So Aimpoint helped us to identify opportunities for data prep optimization opportunities And that came through those user consultations, but it also came through in looking at how are you connecting to data? Are there different ways to do that, more efficient and effective use of the tool that you just purchased? And their expertise and collaborative approach were instrumental, really, in achieving our goals, ensuring a successful implementation and maximizing the value of our investment.
All right, so let's talk about the approach and key success factors for these migrations. For a large-scale migration transformation like this to succeed, we believe in focusing on three core pillars for success: crafting a plan, enabling users, and accelerating execution of the migration. First, the importance of a good plan honestly cannot be overstated. Every organization's circumstances are unique, which is why establishing a tailored plan is so critical. And in just a couple of weeks, Aimpoint provided a highly nuanced and comprehensive assessment with findings and recommendations based on Highmark's existing Alteryx deployment and their desired future state. This culminated in a prescribed migration strategy unique to Highmark, including key technical obstacles to solve for, which Andrew alluded to, the lighthouse use cases is what we call them. And we were able to also look into user sentiment and change management themes that were critical to pay attention to make the migration a success, and opportunities to mature as well. From there, the migration was activated with two key objectives. One, to enable Alteryx users in the Dataiku platform, and to accelerate the migration of assets and users as efficiently as possible, particularly with an eye towards eliminating duplicative effort. Aimpoint delivered a custom hands-on enablement series for over 200 users at Highmark, focused specifically on Alteryx usage patterns and how they translate to Dataiku. That program ensured migrating users had a high level of support and attention from our migration team members, including individuals and team coaching sessions. As a result, users were fully enabled to go and execute their own hands-on migration of their Alteryx assets. In parallel, Aimpoint worked to accelerate progress in various ways to ensure Highmark's migration timeline. We identified 12 lighthouse use cases, which are key representative use case design patterns that potentially present the greatest sticking points for users who are looking to migrate. So by solving and documenting those in accordance with best practices and working with Highmark leadership on what those design patterns should look like in the new platform, we were able to mitigate inefficiencies and delays and provide the user base the clarity they need to work on their own user-led migration without any hindrances. The net result of this is a robust, tailored plan that ensured Highmark was able to get further along in their migration journey than they would have had they had to go it alone. And it looks like this from a 30,000-foot view to give you a sense of some of the activities that go into this. Of course, this is very simplified. Let me pause here for a second, Andrew, and just ask you, can you describe the importance, in particular, of that initial assessment and how impactful that was to take the time, craft a plan for the migration as a whole, and what impact that had?
Yeah, I think we had to have some measurement of how high is the hill we have to climb over. And so I go back to that technical expertise that Aimpoint brought. They had the ability to analyze and then reanalyze it after we kind of had conversations about, okay, well, when does the learning curve kick in? How many hours per workflow, right? And of course, no technologist wants to provide that estimate. It's impossible to do, right? But we did have to provide our leadership, how big is this investment in terms of development hours of our folks? So Aimpoint was able to not only measure how many workflows are truly needed, because a whole bunch were identified later as able to retire, but some are complex, some are medium, and some are small, and also some teams have many. And so all of those things factor into one another, and Aimpoint brought that expertise to really calculate as best an estimate as they could that really is proving out to be pretty accurate in terms of how much work do we have to ask our users to do to get us through this journey. And I'll also point out those lighthouse use cases. I mentioned earlier, we're a heavily corporally and drive focused environment where folks store their data sets on a corporate land drive. And that was one use case that was not supported in GCP. We really had to get off of that and get to a more modern data storage and data access pattern. And part of the two of those lighthouse use cases were other ways to do that. Basically, SharePoint was one, obviously, and then another one is just using a custom suite of some Google services that we internally call Fastlane. And so Aimpoint was able to establish a step-by-step demo and documentation of how do you connect through each of those, right? And they were both akin to storing a file on corp LAN drives. And the reason this is important is because we believe that was going to be the biggest challenge to our adoption, that we expected that shift in mentality that folks would have to truly change was monumental. And we needed to know how big is that? First of all, how many of our Alteryx workflows connect to and store data on a corp LAN drive, but also how much is that effort to take something from an Excel-based file on corp LAN and put it on SharePoint, or to put it in a BigQuery table set or cloud storage blob on GCP. So they were able to do that measurement, not only in quantity, but also how much effort each of those would be. And it really got to be critical to understand that to really convince our leadership that we were ready to move forward.
And that's a great example of something that's happening in parallel at the organization that has to be accounted for. It's something that you might not find on paper, but through a series of conversations and that initial assessment was quickly flagged as something that had to be accounted for to make this migration a success that we had to solve for, right? And so for those in the audience today who are interested, the Aimpoint team would love to have a conversation with you about that first step, the migration assessment, and how it can benefit you, because the initial assessment is a crucial and frankly low risk first step for any organization that's serious about migrating that you could take to get clarity on the path forward. One additional call out I do want to make based on the activities you see here, just because it's especially worth noting for those who are considering a migration. Our team at Aimpoint has developed an auto migrator tool specifically designed to automatically port Alteryx workflows into the Dataiku platform. It automates project setup, data source configuration, and as much of the workflow that it can until it reaches a tool that's not yet been developed for. At Highmark, our efforts to implement this tool came later in the migration, but this represents a further help in reducing the overall level of effort and to accelerate the migration of workflows to an even greater degree. So this tool we've seen provide a further reduction in manual effort around 25 to 35%, depending on the client we're working with and their usage of Alteryx. And so for Highmark, we're anticipating somewhere around 33% reduction in the manual effort to be achieved when that's all said and done. All right, so as we draw to a close, you see here a sense of the scope for this endeavor as a whole. Over 200 users trained, more than 3,000 workflows that were in scope for the initial assessment coming from server. Many of those identified as desktop-based flows that previously there was no governance or visibility around. With Aimpoint support to narrow down the scope of the migration by nearly 50% through things like inventory, triage, duplication efforts, Highmark was far better positioned to accomplish the migration than it would have been on its own. So, Andrew, as you've gone through this transformation, what would you say have been some of the more important factors to navigating the transition effectively from your experience?
Yeah, I think how we highlighted the importance of measuring that hill before we went up, understanding how many workflows there were, measuring them in complexity, having a approximate per workflow development effort estimate, and also some of those more mathematical equations such as what is the learning curve over time? How do you start to get more efficient? What does the fifth and sixth workflow actually take you once you really start to get into it? So having that knowledge and measurement was really important. And then, of course, having a very clearly laid out plan of change management. So we didn't just give users a deadline and a link to a tool and say, good luck, right? We truly shepherd them along the entire way. We brought them and assigned them into training and told them what that content was going to be. During that training, which was about 7 weeks, had the user office hours to come and discuss things offline or even just to look at your workflow. And then the broader group also got office hours as we proceeded forward. And along the way, we were making those items that were documented and captured that we mentioned before, those lighthouse use cases. All of them are now clearly documented and recorded as demos on our user enablement site so that users can routinely go back and refer to them, and we can update them over time as well. And then as users went through, giving them a way to not only track their progress, but also ask for help. We established that line of communication right up front and continued it all the way through the end, and Aimpoint was really pivotal in setting up that plan. So I think those are two of the most important things I'd call out as benefits that we received from Aimpoint.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've seen with a lot of the clients we've worked with. People want to know, they want to have clarity on what the plan is and what's expected of them. So just that first step of clarifying and doing our due diligence to continually communicate expectations throughout the process is huge. Awesome. Well, now as we close, we want to share some strategic recommendations, sort of key takeaways and lessons to share with you all based on this migration experience at Highmark. Maybe you're considering a migration in a similar situation as Highmark was early on in their journey. So what are some of the lessons learned that you can use to navigate your migration from Alteryx or similar legacy platform to Dataiku? First, modernization is necessary. There's a clear pattern that's emerging away from legacy platforms because of the very real pain points that they present in favor of cloud-first solutions like Dataiku. If you're interested in hearing more about how Dataiku helps resolve some of the key pain points that organizations have been facing with Alteryx, even beyond what was shared during this session today, Aimpoint would be happy to have a conversation with you on that.
And partnering with the right expert for success. It's critical to streamline a migration, change management, setting a plan, and assuring user adoption. And so really talking back to that technical expertise and having a clear partner to work with is critical.
Key theme we've talked about today, and this third point, is just being willing to take the step to craft the right plan. Don't underestimate the power of that key first step to assess what the status quo in Alteryx looks like today and be able to work and establish a clear, pragmatic, comprehensive plan that's well suited and tailored to your organization. Aimpoint has the thorough expertise and the suite of migration tools needed to run an assessment in short order. So if you want to know whether your company is a good fit, please don't hesitate to reach out today to start that conversation.
And lastly, engage and empower your users through strong communication and training to foster that buy-in, show them that you have a plan all along and shepherd them along the way. It's critical to get that user engagement.
All right. Well, as we close, again, want to thank Andrew Charland from Highmark for taking the time to share Highmark's modernization journey and his experience having Aimpoint as their transformation partner for the migration to Dataiku. As a reminder, Aimpoint is the back-to-back Dataiku Services Partner of the Year in the Americas the last 2 years. And we're also the Alteryx Global Partner of the Year. So there's no one better positioned globally to partner with you along this path. So before we jump into our Q&A time, just want to share a couple of ways you can get in touch with Aimpoint Digital. There's a QR code on the screen now to contact us online to get started, as well as my personal email. So please feel free to email me directly at justin.davis@aimpointdigital.com or visit us at aimpointdigital.com. Now we're going to turn it over to Q&A. Thanks, everyone.